All right, good morning, traders. Today is March 28, 2025. Thank you for being here. Hey, I want to thank everybody out there in podcast land, digital land, cyber land. Appreciate that. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for getting engaged. I appreciate that. Love that. Thank you for finding the value in my content. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so my SPY pivot this morning, 567.90. Above it, I'm a bull. Below it, I'm a bear. All of the Fab 5 are still in daily downtrends. All except for Diamond Dow made lower highs and lower lows, closing below their traps, below their falling 17s. SPY closed with, I got to fix that, or I'm not sure if that's right. Okay, let me just check that real quick. SPY, not sure why I didn't fix that. 10-minute. 10-minute downtrend and a 2-hour downtrend. All right, back up here. I don't know what I have written. 2-hour downtrend. Yeah, 10-minute downtrend. Diamond Dow made a lower low and a lower high, closing inside a bullish trap, but under the flat 17. Gold and silver, both in daily uptrends. Gold made a new all-time high. Silver made a higher high and a higher low, closing over a bullish trap over the 17. USO made a lower high and a lower low, closing over a bullish trap over the 17. UNG, another high flyer, now in a downtrend, made an outside day, closing below a bearish trap under the 17 EMA. US dollar index, still in a downtrend. We love that. Closed near the 104.27 area. SPY max pain is 567 today, with a put to call ratio of 1.5 puts to each call that expires today. So SPY max pain is based on only the options that do expire today. All right, so let's take a look at some charts. All right, first chart, SPY on the 10-minute. Okay, you can see big red candle at the end, 3 EMA, that's the yellow line, crossing underneath the white line, 10-minute downtrend coming into the close. All right, 10-minute downtrend. Let's take a look at the 2-hour. 2-hour, you can see the candlesticks, a lot of tails up there. I got to tell you, we tested this area, which is gap fill, all right, about 564.18 right here. We've tested this area multiple times. I kind of think we're going through. All right, I'm just saying, like, if we get down to 564.18 gap fill, I think there's a good chance we're going through this time. Looking at all these tails up here, all right, and the multiple times we've been down here very close to this area, I think there's a good chance we go through the gap fill, probably down to these tails down here. So see the wicks. I'm saying a lot of wicks. That's what I meant. I said tails, but I meant wicks here on the 2-hour. So I think we're probably coming down to, see, you got a couple of tails down here. I think we're probably coming down to this breakup candle low, which is at 558.87. So we'll see what happens today. Today's Friday. Friday's an options expiration day. So anything can happen, all right? Weird stuff happens on Friday. All right, so there's a 2-hour chart. Got a 2-hour downtrend coming into the close. Let's look at the daily chart. And on the daily chart, you can see here we put in a lower high and a lower low, closing below the trap, below the falling 17 here. Let's check it out here with the quad lines. Again, you move up, you give it up, that's neutral. Okay, you move down, you give it up, that's neutral. Okay, so we got something going on here. We got a little trend line developing because we got 2 lower points. All right, so kind of watch this area right through here. Break that trend line. All right, and I got to say there's a good chance we're probably coming down to visit the 550 low. All right, if we break this uptrend line. If they could spike it today all the way down here to that 2-hour breakup candle low, but keep an eye on this. They start printing candles underneath this line, and we could see a visit of 550 one more time. Just double bottom it, or maybe even make a lower low. We'll see what happens. So there's SPY on the daily time frame. again, you can see we were in a downtrend, so we are experiencing the pullback in the downtrend for the SPY. Let's take a look at max pain. All right, let's come on over here to the 10-minute chart, pull up max pain. All right, so today, not max pain, game plan. All right, so for today, I like 7 days till expiration options. So that's Friday options. So I like 7 DTE or 14 DTE. All right, for the SPY game plan. SPY pivot 567.90. All right. Green erases red. Green erases red over 569.90. So right over the top. See these two bearish engulfing candles right here? So right over the top of those. All right. That's the green erases red entry up there. All right. So we'll see. Maybe we bounce off the uptrend line on the daily chart and rip all the way back up through. We'll see. All right. So there's those two bearish engulfing candles right up there, or moves up there on the 10-minute chart. Above that, that's the bullish green erases red entry on the SPY. On the bearish side, okay, see this brick down here? Got a nice square brick. So below 566.60. All right, and you can see what we got down here. This purple line, all right, right through here, this thin purple line, that is the 2025 low anchored VWAP right there, okay? I got to say, we've been in this area for a little while now. There's a good chance we go right through that 2025 low anchored VWAP. And this right here, 564.18, all right, which is the gap fill. And I got to say, I kind of think we go through that as well. All right, we haven't left the area, and we've been down in this area in the pre-market 2 or 3 times already. I got to say, I have a hunch we're coming through it. All right, there's the SPY game plan. Let's take a look at the QQQ game plan. All right, QQQ. All right, pivot 482.80. Yep, 482.80 right here. Okay. Again, we've got bearish engulfing and bearish engulfing right here. Okay, on the 10-minute chart. So up over 484.90, just over those. Okay, that's my bullish green erases red entry. All right. And on the bearish side, all right, we've got the brick right here. Getting below that brick, 481.80, below the brick, below 481, that is a red erases green entry down there. All right, you can see we're already down there, so probably going a little bit lower here. We'll see what happens. All right, so there's QQQ on the 10-minute. That is the QQQ 10-minute game plan. Let's see if I can find that. There's the moniker right there. All right. Again, I like 7 days till expiration options. I like 14 days till expiration options. I like the Friday options, especially because more open interest. I like $2 to $5 out of the money. I actually like anytime you see those increments of 5. All right, so like 565, 570, 575. They're usually loaded up with a little bit more open interest. So if I'm going $2 to $5 out of the money, a lot of times I will seek one of those increments of 5 out because they have more open interest. All right, so I like $2 to $5 out of the money. They're a little bit cheaper. They don't offer the performance that an in the money option would have, like a 0 DTE in the money option. All right, but they have a little less performance, but they also offer a little less risk. All right, especially when you're dealing with candles that 10-minute candles that are sometimes $3 and $4 long. All right, I've seen some recently. I've been seeing some $3 candles. Let's just take this one, 489.35. All right, 491.50. All right, it's like 2.5 right there. So I've been seeing some big candles. Just one candle could set you back, all right, like 10 daily goals. So be careful out there. That's why I choose $2 to $5 out of the money, all right. Kind of slows things down, all right, so that we can experience some success. All right, there's QQQ. Let's go pick everything up on the daily chart and the scratch. Here we are, lower high, lower low, closing under the trap. You can see right there, trap's about to cross, getting a bearish cross right there. See the yellow 3 crossing now under the 8. QQQ, all right, lower high, lower low, closing under the cross. All right, under the falling 17 here. Okay, under the pink line, that's the all-time high anchored VWAP. Okay, down here below, see the green dash, that's the midpoint. Okay, so that's just neutral. Okay, they get any lower down here, I'm going to say that's in bearish territory. All right, that will be bearish. Okay, you go up, you give it up, that's neutral. Same thing if you go down. If you go down, you give it up, that's neutral as well. All right, so there's QQQ. Let's go take a look at Diamond Dow. All right, Diamond Dow, a little bit different than the others. Lower high, lower low. Yes, that's the same. Okay, but closing inside a bullish trap. All right, just underneath the flat 17 here. Okay, a little bit more strength identified in Diamond Dow. Closing over the midpoint. Under the pink line, that's the all-time high anchored VWAP. Under the uptrend line, that's this gold diagonal line right there. Okay, still over the uptrend line, just like SPY and QQQ. All right, price action still in a pullback in this daily downtrend right now. All right, so there's Diamond Dow on the daily chart. All right, looking a little bit healthier than the other two, SPY and QQQ. Let's take a look at FNGU, FNGA. All right, we got lower high, lower low, closing under the trap. See the cross here under the trap. See the red dots under the falling 17. Okay, see the pink line, all-time high anchored VWAP. Under the pink line, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. See the green dash, that's the midpoint. Okay, under the midpoint or half court, midfield. All right, again, all of them in these daily pullbacks in these daily downtrends, they all experiencing this uptrend line right here. Okay, so watch them all right, to break that line, spike that line, poke that line. They start printing candles down here. Guess what? Probably going to visit those lows again. All right, we'll see what happens, or maybe even test those lows. So there's FNGA. Now we watch FNGA. It's not an index, it's actually an ETN. But we watch this because this has 10 of the most heavily weighted stocks in the QQQ and the SPY, okay? And actually those 10 securities have the ability, when they move in a pack, like they have the ability to jerk the SPY index or the QQQ index around, all right? The other, like in the NASDAQ 100, the other 90 could be moving in a different direction than the FNGA, and the FNGA will just overpower them, and price will actually follow the FNGA as opposed to the other 90 in the NASDAQ 100. Same thing goes for the SPY. All right, S&P 500. All right, you got 10 heavily weighted stocks that happen to have enough power that when the other 480 are moving in the opposite direction, they can be overcome by just those 10 stocks, those 10 securities alone. So we watch this because this is pretty much what's going to jerk the SPY and the QQQ around. All right, so just a heads up, that's why this is not an index, but we do track it all the time. Okay, you can see lower high, lower low, closing again under a trap, under the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP, under the midpoint. All right, again, just like QQQ. They get any lower here, and they're going to qualify as bearish. They are also neutral. QQQ neutral, SPY neutral. Okay, look for those breaks of this uptrend line. So there's FNGA. Let's take a look at, we did Diamond Dow. Let's take a look at IWM. Another pullback in a downtrend, right? Lower high, lower low, closing under a trap, under the flat 17. Okay, under this is the all-time high anchored VWAP. Under the uptrend line, that's the gold line right here. Under the midpoint. Oh look, down here in quadrant 1, that's bearish right here. Okay, you move up, you give it up, and more, all right, that's bearish. You move up and you give it up, that's just neutral. But you move up, you give it up and more, that's bearish. So there's IWM. Let's go take a look at our technicals. T2122. All right, a lot of chopping around back and forth over the midpoint, okay? A little bit on the push on the bulls, a little bit of push on the bears, a little bit of push on the bulls. All right, anyways, here's price action on the 15-minute T2122. Okay, you can see we almost tagged the sell zone here, but we rallied up over it into the buyer's chop zone. This is yesterday's price action, only to get thrown out by the bears, and then chomp around inside the seller's chop zone, and then back up to the midpoint to visit the bears in the buyer's chop zone. Okay, so making lower highs. See the making lower highs? Will they be making lower lows? We'll have to watch that. See, that's what happened here. Lower highs, lower lows. All right. Actually, some lower highs here and then lower lows. All right, so T2123. Of course, you saw all that chopping around. Yeah, well, it's replicated here on T2123. Little red, little green, little red, little green, little red, little green, okay? Holding and probably maybe catching on this 200 SMA here. All right, look at price action, kind of just moving to the right. All right, hopefully it's catching. All right, I got to see some higher highs though. Coming out of this, if this is going to catch, I got to see higher highs. Haven't got one yet. All right, and they've been here for, looks like I'm going to call it maybe 12 candle bars, maybe 10 candle bars here. All right, you linger too long, and guess what? Without making higher highs, it's a chance you're coming through. All right, so keep an eye on this one. This is T2123, 15-minute chart. Okay, if we zoom way out, you can see we've got a huge hockey stick, okay, bear flag. All right, price action comes down and then over to the right. See the bear flag right there. All right, and typical price action moves in a manner much like this, okay? If you don't get that V bottom bounce, all right, what happens is price comes down, okay, and it lingers here too long, and then holders of securities begin to wonder, all right, this is what happens. This is the emotional content of trading the markets, all right, is they begin to wonder why we're not moving back up. Why are we not bouncing back up? And what happens is they give up their positions, and then we get a move like this to the downside, okay? Because people want to see this. They want to see that red rubber school ball bounce, all right? So when you get down here and they're still holding on and they don't see this, price moving back up, okay, they kind of give up, all right, thinking that this overwhelming bearish pressure, and they don't want to experience the next move down. And what happens is they actually cause the next move down right there. Okay, so there's price action there. On T2123, here's a 3-bar chart. All right, 3 more red candle bars. I had a little hope here. Past couple of days, I saw some green. All right, couldn't quite hold up. All right, so we got price action. 3 more red candle bars. Still underneath this fading 200 SMA. And you can see how price action works. You make a lower high. That will inspire the bears to make a lower low, and they did. All right, there's price action underneath 2 prior all-time highs right here. All right, and that is the all-time high up there. So as you can see, currently looking at that bear flag pattern. All right, maybe another move to the downside. We'll see. There's T2123 3-bar. Let's take a look at the FNGA. All right, again, more selling from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. You can see us kind of fading through, possibly coming through this uptrend line right here. This probably belongs a little bit closer up. Looks like they already got through it if I actually plot it out with this low and this low. Price action, okay, underneath the flat 200. Okay, was hoping for a catch, didn't quite get it. All right, again, we're testing these lows from the 18th and the 21st. All right, it was nice when we were making higher highs. The question is, are these lows now going to hold up? All right, we got 18, 21. Here's one from the 27th. You can see we're already down here. All right, that's FNGA. Let's take a look at a few sectors. Start off with XLE. All right, nice high flyer, bullish up in the upper third. Lower high, lower low, closing in the trap over the rising 17. Okay, that's in an uptrend. We have a high here. They made a higher high. That's an uptrend. Over this 12-month high anchored VWAP, that's a pink line. Over downtrend line 1, downtrend line 2, above both of those. Above the midpoint, up here in the upper third, that's bullish. Let's take a look at USO. USO, lower high, lower low, closing over a bullish trap. Okay, over the 17, that's a green dots here. Bullish trap, that's the 3 EMA. It's only when the 3 EMA is on top of the 8 EMA, that would be the bullish trap. Because when it's under, it's a bearish trap. All right, so closing over the bullish trap, over the 17, over this 12 USO. No, that's a 3-year high anchored VWAP all the way back in 2022. That's the post-COVID high. All right, so over that 3-year high anchored VWAP, over the uptrend line, over the midpoint up here. Okay, they move up, they give it up, that's neutral. You move down, you give it up, that's neutral. So still hanging out here at the midpoint. There's USO on the daily chart. Let's take a look at UNG. Another high flyer. Now in a downtrend, making lower highs and lower lows. Price action's an outside day. All right, closing under or inside this bearish trap under the 17 EMA. I'm going to give it to them. In the upper third, that's still bullish up there. Over the uptrend line, right here, that's the goal line. And you can see over the 12-month high anchored VWAP, that's the pink line down here. All right, so there's UNG, another high flyer. Now in a downtrend, making lower lows and lower highs. All right, let's take a look at GLD. All right, GLD makes a new all-time high. All right, doesn't get any better than that. All right, that's in an uptrend. Hey, that's bullish, by the way. Okay, new all-time high. All right, SLV. All right, higher low, higher high, closing over the bullish trap, over the rising 17, over, this is a 12-year high anchored VWAP. That's that pink line, over that 12-year high anchored VWAP. Up here in, see that, up in quadrant 4, that's bullish up there. Probably going to go attack and test this high, that prior high up there, that 12-year high. All right, probably going to go attack and testing. We'll see what happens, SLV. If they get up there and consolidate, guess what? We're going higher. All right, that's SLV right there. Let's take a look at SMH. Losing my voice. Lower high, lower low, closing under the trap, under the 17, okay? Under, pink line, all-time high anchored VWAP. Under the midpoint, they're in the lower third, almost in quadrant 1. That's bearish, okay? You give it up, you move up, you give it up and more. That's bearish down here, okay? So that's SMH. Let's go look at the cousin to the SMH. That's the XLK, all right? Technology sector. Lower high, lower low, closing under a trap, under the 17. See the pink line under the all-time high anchored VWAP. See the goal line under the uptrend line, under the midpoint. Just neutral here, okay? They get down in the lower third, they're going to be bearish again. That's XLK. Let's take a look at XLF. XLF. Lower high, lower low, closing inside a bullish trap over the hooking 17. See how the dots go from red to green? Nice little hook there. Over the all-time high anchored VWAP up here in quadrant 4. That's bullish. Let's take a look at IYT. Then we're going to go hit the economic package. Maybe we can get in and out today before they the internet malfunctions. All right, that's the plan. Lower high, lower low, closing under a bullish cross, under the falling 17. That's the red dots. All right, under this all-time high anchored VWAP. That's the pink line. Under, see the gold line? That's the uptrend line. Under the uptrend line. Under the green dash, that's the midpoint, under the midpoint, okay? They get any lower, they're going to be in the lower third. That's going to be bearish. Right now, they're neutral, all right? They get any lower, start closing candles any lower, they're going to be in bearish territory. So there's IYT. All right, on the economic package. All right, SPY Max Pain for today, the 28th. 567. Those are for the options that expired today. Got tongue-tied there. All right. Put the call ratio for the options that expired today. A little over 1.5 puts to each call that expires today. All right. On the earnings calendar, it's going to be really easy. All right. Just some familiar names. Nothing that's going to move the markets. Same thing happened on Monday. All right, some familiar names, Red Cat Holdings. All right. So nothing that's really going to move the markets here. Okay. On the dollar chart. Okay. Price action moved down to close near the 104.27. That's this red candle right here. See, we're still below the minor support. If we get below here, we'll break some of that major support. Okay. See, we're kind of holding up in a bear flag through here. Okay, got to break some of that major support down here. Okay, if we break that major support, yeah, we're probably going to come visit this breakup candle low. All right, so there is the, there you go, there's the dollar. All right, let's take a look at the economic calendar. Let me just say GDP was not impressive yesterday. Jobless claims and international trade in goods seem to be in line, all right? But GDP was 2.4, you know, and we like to see 3, 3.5, 4, you know. That's when the company is banging and rocking and rolling, okay? But 2.5, that's not impressive at all right? Especially with this falling dollar, all right? So, today, personal income and outlays, 8:30. Consumer sentiment, 10 o'clock. All right? And a rig count at 1 o'clock. That's it. I will get those posted. Yes. Give me just a second. I'll get those posted. All right, traders, that's it. I'm going to render my video. I'm going to post up the game plans. And I'll be back in like 45 minutes and we'll kick this off. I'll be here. If you got questions, post them up. All right. And I'll get that video out for everybody out there in podcast and digital land. All right. I want to wish everybody a happy Friday if I don't see you for the wrap up. All right. And have a great and safe weekend. All right. Let me get those posted up, Robert. All right. And I will see you guys in about 45 minutes. Thanks, Brad. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for finding the value in my content.